Welcome to the Prosperity Gap, where we discuss the financial gap that exists between where we are and where we should be. It's time to bridge that gap.
Hey, Prosperity Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Prosperity Gap. My name's Dave Hall. Super excited to be your host again today. Before we get started and I introduce our guest, I want to remind you to please subscribe to our show if you've not yet done so. Every Friday, we put out a new show. We want to make sure that you get the latest and greatest, that you get an opportunity to meet some amazing people. One of the best parts about our show is we have amazing people coming on here telling their financial story, telling their journey, and allowing us to get to know them better. Also, today's show is being brought to you by Prosperity Academy Plus. If you're looking to change your life, please go to prosperityacademyplus.com and they can provide you with all the tools, the resources, the training that you need to allow you to change your financial future. So with that, very excited today to welcome to the show, Misha Griffith. Misha, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
I am doing very well. I always say I'm excited about these shows because I do love talking about finance. Today's no different because we're going to take a little different approach. Many times on this show, those who listen know that we share stories, but we really don't take the whole time of the show to share the story. Many people will come on and they'll talk about other topics. They'll talk about things that they're doing. Today, our whole goal is to allow you to better understand Misha's story and to allow us to understand from the good things she's done, the bad things she's done, to hopefully allow each of us to start making better decisions. So with that, Misha, maybe we can go back to the beginning. I think we're going to take quite a journey here as I read through your story. But where did this financial journey for you all start?
First, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited, and I hope my story kind of inspires either others to start their journey, keep starting their journey, just don't give up. But where did my journey start? I graduated from college in 2013, 3 years, not 4. I was very excited, and I had $13,000 in student loan debt. Not a lot, very exciting. And then my husband, well, we weren't married then, but we are now. We decided to move to San Diego. Collectively, we had about $50,000 in student loan debt, which between two people with bachelors, again, not too bad. So we pack everything up in my tiny little Ford Focus and we just start trucking out there.
So people know, so the trucking out there is going from where? So where did you guys
Right.
start this journey?
We started from Ohio, Midwest, just two kids who didn't know much, Columbus, Ohio, and we were excited. We get to San Diego. Well, first we started in San Francisco, and we lived there for 3 days. And we were like, you know what? Not for us.
That might be the history for a move to a city that you only last 3 days. That might be a record.
I think it might be because it was very short-lived. But we drove on down to San Diego and fell in love and fell in debt. So our first studio apartment, yes, studio, no other bedroom except for the one that connected to the living room, $1,300 a month. 2 kids, no jobs. What could go wrong? My husband gets a job as a financial advisor, life insurance salesperson. And then I got a job as a customer service rep. You move to a new city, you don't really know a lot of people, and you're doing sales. It can be very, very challenging. So we had $20,000, and then 9 months later, we did not have $20,000. San Diego's really expensive, and it was trying to keep up with honestly living at that point.
Misha, let's talk a little bit about this because I think there's an important thing that's happening here that people need to understand that are listening to the show. You're coming from Columbus, Ohio. My guess is that the cost of San Diego maybe even was double. I mean, definitely
Yes.
Substantially more than what you were paying when you were living in Columbus, and for rent, the various things you had to pay. Would that be a correct statement?
Oh, 100%. I was paying like $600 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And then I went to $1,300 for a studio.
And are these things you expected? Did you expect it to be that much more expensive when you moved there? Or you thought, no, we're just going to move and it should be similar to what we're currently paying and everything should work out fine?
We definitely expected the hike in rent. And that's why we had that $20,000 as like a jumping off point. Like this will hold us until we get jobs and then can, run from there. I think the problem kind of started was we weren't making that much money. So the $20,000 was basically how we lived. And we weren't living modestly either. We were, going out and exploring this new city with brunches and meeting people and buying everything we could. And yeah, it was tough.
Prosperity Nation, what Misha is sharing here is such an important thing that you need to understand, especially if you're looking to move. I know over the years, I've had many clients that have moved to San Diego. I was in Las Vegas for a number of years, so many of my clients were trying to get to a better climate, better weather, a different place. I also had many of them that moved to New York. Well, these are very high cost places. And just like you're saying, if you expect to be able to move there and then continue to work, whether it's a 12-hour job, $1 an hour job, 15, whatever, that you were used to living on in somewhere like Ohio, it's not going to be the same. And you need to be careful of that when you go into those cities, that if you're expecting to you've been used to a certain wage and you think, oh, I can go here and get the same wage, those numbers are never going to match out because the cost is just so much more that you need to be aware that if you're going into those cities, you've got to have more income.
Exactly. 100%. You need to look at all the numbers, look at the big scheme of things, just not just rent, how much is it going to cost me for gas? Because gas is almost double out there. Like, and you might be driving farther or in the car longer. There's little things, and it definitely, you need to prepare yourself.
You also got higher taxes. I mean, it just adds and adds and adds as you go on to it. And I assume even eating out, that because you're going into these very nice areas, that it's more expensive to eat out. Now you add all that up and it's like, how do we do this? And what happens, not only to you, it happens to many people out there. The same story is all of a sudden lucky for you, had $20,000 to get started with. Fortunately, many people are in a position where they don't have the reserve and they just start living off credit cards immediately once they hit those situations.
Exactly. And not to say it's not possible to live in these high cost areas, but it's definitely, you need to be smart about it. 100% you need to be smart about it.
Definitely a lot of planning that goes in. We've moved a lot. We live in Puerto Rico now. We've lived in Utah, Nevada. So we've gone through these various places. One of the biggest things I've had to worry about, especially having as many kids as I have, is doing the research. We need to make sure that the school's appropriate, the area is going to be cost effective for us, that it's going to be secure, all these things. And if you can do your research, I think it's going to really help keep you from making some of these mistakes that unfortunately Misha's made. And again, many, many other people have made. She's not alone. This isn't her on an island. This is many other people. And maybe some of you listening have made these same mistakes. So Misha, you're at this point, you've blown through the 20 grand. What happens next?
So my husband then gets a more stable salary job, which increases our income. I'm slowly climbing up the customer service ladder. I went from customer service to customer manager. It was a slow progression, but we made it. If we would have just stayed put, we did not. With our inflated income, we inflated our lifestyle. We got a 1-bedroom apartment because they were raising our rent from $1,300 to $1,500. And I said, well, for $100 more, let's get a 1-bedroom. Well, now we're at $1,600, basically putting us at the same amount of income to spending ratio. And we're still trying to live this great life in San Diego.
And something that I want to comment on here too, and it probably with the size that you went from a studio to a 1-bedroom, it didn't change that much, stuff like utilities. You need to be aware. We've had many people, especially when I lived in Vegas, that came out of California living in 1,000, 2,000 square foot homes. Well, they came to Vegas and bought a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot home because what they sold their house for is what they could now afford in Vegas. But then they forgot that it gets super hot during the summer in Vegas and you need to air condition that home. It can cost up to $1,000 to air condition a home that size. And I saw many, many people come in thinking they could buy the home and then it would be very cheap for them to live. And all of a sudden they're going, wait a second, there's a bunch of bills coming in every month that I'm not expecting. It's starting to create problems. You see that as we try to up our lifestyle. Usually it's not just the rent, it turns into other costs. We've got to buy new furniture. We've got to do all these things. So Prosperity Nation, just be aware as you're doing that. And the longer you can stay in the zone you're in, especially if you have debt, the better off you're going to be.
Exactly. And I mean, even with furniture, like looking at a couch, $500 minimum for 3 seats. And I think we had an orange free couch that we got because I was like, we can't afford a couch, but we're moving into a 1-bedroom. So where are people going to sit?
The bigger that house is, the more furniture you're going to have to fill it up. And that's all just going to add to the cost.
Exactly. It definitely did. So then we decide to get married finally. After 8 years of dating, high school sweetheart.
So
It's not too long.
You'd vetted him out by this point, it sounds like. You decided he was going to be a decent guy.
Yes, we agreed, we're both decent enough people that it probably would work. And, here we are, 11 years going through it all together. So we tried to get married. Well, we wanted a big wedding and we had credit cards. So that helped fund the wedding, and we weren't quite there. We still needed a little bit more. So what did? We got a personal loan, which this is the one thing this is going to sound weird, but we didn't do it right. But we got the loan and we said, we're going to pay it off before our 1-year anniversary. This is not going to take us 5 years to pay this off. And we did that. So 1 check mark.
Congratulations. That's great. That's good.
Check mark. Thank you. So we got that loan. I mean, just more credit card debt, more loan debt, really to just fund a lifestyle that if we would have scaled back, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. But nonetheless, we learn from our mistakes. So after that, another year goes by, time for a lease renewal. They wanted to bump our rent up, and we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I was like, well, for another $100, we could live half a mile from the beach. So $1,800, here we are. But we'd also increased our salaries. We probably were at 110 collectively, $110,000. And so we're doing okay, but we're expanding our lifestyle and expanding our income at the same time. It doesn't quite match up. And then I had a sick and tired moment. I was just like, I can't keep paying all of this money to debt on stuff that I don't even have anymore, like brunches and happy hours. Like, that's all in the credit cards. For what? So I found a debt-free community and I said, we need to cut our living expenses. That is our biggest expense. We need to cut it. So as a newlywed couple, we got roommates and dropped our rent from, it was a challenge, but from $1,850 to $1,250, and we roomed with a great couple. It was amazing. I love them, but I also love that $600 a month savings that we could now throw towards debt.
So what was your husband's take on all this when all of a sudden you came home and said, hey, honey, all the things we've been doing are now going to go away because we've got to fix our life? Was he on board with it from day one?
From day one, not so much, but maybe day 7, it did take some convincing and some like showing him the numbers. He's a numbers guy. So if I lay it out, like we're at 1,800 and our expenses are at 1,600 or whatever the number is, like that doesn't give us much room, which is why we continue to add credit card debt, open new credit cards. Like it's not adding up and we're only going to get worse.
Was there a point here where you started actually paying some of this down? Once you decided, okay, we're going to get a roommate, we're going to cut our budget. Was it a point that we just broke even, or it's like, hey, let's actually start paying this down at this point?
So once we got roommates, it was like we basically kept our lifestyle the same and then took that $600 extra, I call it a raise. We took that $600 raise and threw it all toward debt. So with that and the minimums, we were able to pay off $12,000 in 6 months.
Awesome.
So there we go. We're moving, we're going along. It was great. I was motivated and just ready. Then I lost my job, which was a huge blow to the budget. Because like I said, we were at our maximum income and it just wiped us out. Blow to the budget, blow to my ego. I, fell into depression because we'd done all this work and it was halted. And not only halted, we started to go back. So very challenging, very tough. And I found a job, but definitely not where I was.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that we need to be aware of. And most people, it's very hard to get a second job, another job to replace. If we lose it, we quit, whatever, well, it's very hard to get a job that's going to pay you the same amount that you've been making. It can happen, but it's going to be very tough depending on your area that you're living in, your skill set, all of those things. So it is very important that we keep some type of reserve, that we try to live below our income. So if that does happen, we have some time to get it fixed and to get back where we need to.
Exactly. I say, the purpose of an emergency fund is to set you up for a setback. And if we would have had one, we would have been set up for this. But we were just so focused on paying off debt that I was like, okay, we'll figure out the emergency fund later. Like, I'll have this job forever. And let me just keep paying off this debt and then we'll get the emergency fund. Big mistake.
One of the things that I think is interesting about your story is along this path, you've done a number of things correct, but then it's turned into a bad situation. I mean, and I think it's no different than most people's lives. You graduated from college in 3 years. I wish one of my kids would graduate from college in 3 years. Unfortunately, with dad paying the bills, they're on this 5-year plan, I think, that they're having to stay there as long as they can. But you graduated in 3 years. That meant that you were able to get making money sooner. You're obviously not going to have as much student debt. I mean, you really did the right thing. You moved to California with $20,000. That's a good emergency fund to say, hey, this should take care of us. But then life happens and we get out of those habits and we get out of those situations. Instead of putting ourselves back into the right situation, unfortunately, it becomes very easy for all of us to just keep making bad decisions and to continue to go down that path that unfortunately at the end leads to a lot of headaches, a lot of problems, and a lot of stress.
Agreed. It's definitely, life happens and you have to go forward with it. That's really the only thing. So if you can set yourself up a little bit better, it might work, but I mean, you never know. You could get an illness, you could lose your job, literally anything. So just being prepared is key.
So you mentioned you got another job. Was that back in San Diego? Were you still living in San Diego at the time?
Yes, still living in San Diego, got the next job and just put my nose to the grind and just tried to, do what I could. I mean, my income cut in half. So that was huge. And it was hard. It was definitely really hard. And we stopped paying any extra towards debt because we couldn't at that point. I mean, we're living with roommates and we're still struggling to make ends meet. And I was like, I don't think we can pay off debt anymore. Like, I think debt is just our life. And I unfollowed everyone on the debt-free community except for like 2 people. And I was done. I was like, this is just who I am. And it was hard. And then one day, someone who had paid off like $100,000 in debt, which is what we were about at, it didn't. They were done. They were like, I'm done. I don't owe any money to anyone anymore. And I was like, wait a second. They live in San Diego. They're doing the same thing. Like, I can do this. And I got back on. I started writing the numbers out, filling out a budget. And I was like, we have to make another change. We have to stop this.
What's very interesting to me in all of our lives, and you express it in your own life here, is it usually just takes one thing. One thing triggers for us an opportunity to get hope, to change, to realize we can do this. And it's staying involved long enough or having the opportunity to be around the right people to where you can get that one thing. You talk about just seeing someone pay off $100,000. It's like, wait, I can do this now. We're here. This is us. This is me. And I can be them here in the future. And now that triggered you to start making some positive changes.
Exactly. It really does just take one post, which is why I do what I do. I run my Instagram, refilling my wallet, and that follows my personal finance journey. And I'm just like, I hope one person sees this and realizes, like, I am not the only person making these mistakes. Like, I can fix this.
Which, by the way, I absolutely love that. Refilling my wallet. That's one of the best terms, best things I've heard in a long time. I think it's so appropriate for what you're doing and trying to get out of your debt-free journey and to get to a debt-free life.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to think, like, what's a name that, like, I will constantly be doing, and maybe it won't always be an empty wallet, but I'll always be adding to it, refilling it, trying to live life and keep up with my finances. So where were we? Oh, a change. So we decided to move back to Ohio, which we've been out there for 4.5 years. And we had $104,000 in debt. And I was like, I cannot ever have more debt than this, like in nothing, in credit card debt and half student loans. Like, this does not work for me. So we start preparing to move back to Ohio. We cash flowed that whole trip home, that whole move home. We just packed everything up, sold a bunch of stuff, and just drove out here. Lived with our in-laws for 3 months.
So which was better, roommates or the in-laws?
I think roommates was definitely better. It's tough to move back home. But of course I appreciate all the generosity, $0 in rent is great, but my roommates, they were amazing.
And one of the things that I hear many times is this adjustment in the housing. If we go through people's financial lives, and many times it's requiring, because it's such a big bill, that if we can adjust the housing for a little bit, whether it's moving in with family, moving to a cheaper place, whatever it may be, that can really start making a huge impact on people's ability to start moving forward again.
Agreed, 100%. It's usually people's biggest bill. So it's definitely one thing, like, how can I cut this down? Can I get a roommate? Can I Airbnb part of my house? What can I do to make this less of a burden for me?
You're back in Ohio now. So what happens now? Once you get back, you're in with the in-laws, things are moving forward.
So it took basically from when we decided to move from San Diego to when we actually did, it was about a year. So in that time, we paid off $14,000 in debt. So we went from 104, our maximum, $104,000 in debt, down to $89,000. And that was amazing. As soon as we moved back to Ohio, we threw all of my money at my Ford Focus that I drove out 4.5 years ago, and that was paid off within like a month. So that was amazing. And then we paid off a credit card, and it's just like, wow, this one move, we've been here 1-2 months, and already I can see like the huge changes it's making to our lives.
There was definitely a little bit of a roller coaster as you talk about what's gone on to this point. And we talked briefly about David's approach when you first addressed it. What's been his approach as you've gone up this roller coaster process?
Definitely moving back to Ohio was really, really hard. Like, to convince someone to leave sunny, beautiful, the dream San Diego, to cold, snowy, negative temperature Ohio. I think he must love me.
What you're telling me that it's not 90 degrees outside right now?
No, it's not too bad, but it's definitely not 90, and it's a little rainy. But he has been supportive of this whole thing. He's ready, like, because it's not like it's just my debt. We've been together since high school, so honestly, our finances have kind of been a mesh since college. So we've been poor together, we've been rich together, we've been on this journey of debt freedom together. So it's nice to have this support system and like someone there for you who agrees and is working towards the same goal.
How do you handle your family finances? Do you pay the bills? Who pays the bills and deals with most of the money issues?
Right. So it's funny because I will do my budget on the computer, and then he will do the budget on paper. And then we compare to see whose is right. And they're usually both right. At this point, they're very similar. And we do come to agreement a lot of times on how we're going to spend the money, where we're going to put the money. Can we take a mini vacation? Should we be putting us towards debt? It's open and honest communication is key. I think, especially with finances, it's better to be open and honest. It's better to be like, this is my debt. What are we doing?
When I talk to anybody about money that's in a relationship, that to me is the absolute most critical part, the first part they need to deal with. If they can openly communicate, they can solve their problems. And if they can be honest with themselves and each other, they can solve their problems. It's when they start getting their own agendas, when they start thinking selfishly, this is when we see that progress becomes very hard to make, and it becomes very hard for people to move forward.
Agreed. It would be very challenging if David wasn't on board, or if we even had separate finances, which I know works for some people, but for us, we have the money comes into one account, the money goes out of one account.
Very interesting. When I became a CPA, that was something I didn't even know people did. I was raised very traditional. I was raised in a home where my Dad made all of the money. My mom ended up managing all the money. In fact, it was funny because one time he actually signed a check. He'd never signed his paycheck. One time my mom was sick and he ended up signing his check and they sent it back saying that it was not his signature because they'd gotten so used to seeing my mom's signature come through. But it was very traditional. And so I didn't realize that there were many couples that actually would separate their funds. And I think you're right. The more you can bring that together, the better off you are. Doesn't mean that you don't have your own money that you're going to spend for your own things, but the more you can bring that together, because what it does is it really does force you to communicate about what's going on with the money, where it's being spent, what's happening, and allows you to really start focusing towards goals together.
Agreed, 100%. It's good to have a team. Like, it's an open, honest, communicating team is the best way to get forward through this.
So you're back in Ohio. You paid down this debt. What next? Where are we at next?
What next? So next we keep paying off debt. We take all of our extra money and we're throwing it towards debt. We're trying to see what can we do to make extra income, because we have done the side hustle game. We've DoorDashed, Uber Eats, Amazon delivery. We've done it all. Walk dogs, everything. But it's like, okay, what do we do to make sure we're adding to our income, decreasing our expenses, and just getting this debt done as quickly as possible?
How have you found those side hustles? Have you found that for you guys, has it been something that you've enjoyed, that's worked, or it's a situation that's like, hey, it's just not for us?
To be honest, it's not really for us. I think the best one for us was DoorDash, because we could actually do that one together. You know, with Uber regular, like with just picking up people, you're kind of on your own. It can get dangerous. I know a lot of people do it. If it works for you, that's great. For me, I was a little hesitant. But DoorDash was great because I could drive and he could go around and get the food, or vice versa. And that was good. But it also does take a lot of energy from you, which is why we don't really do it anymore. Because it's like, we're spending all this extra energy and burning miles on our car, and I don't know.
One of the individuals we've had on our show, Kevin, he's the Financial Panther. I absolutely love following him because he is the ultimate side hustle guy that I've ever seen. Now, obviously, there may be others that are doing equal or better than he is. But the other day, I even saw a post, and something I didn't even know existed and could happen. He was traveling, so he's going through an airport, and at the airport, he was able to pick up someone's bag and deliver it to their hotel. So he was actually able to make money off of that, and he just is always posting stuff. He went on a bus trip that was multiple miles, and it cost him like $2.50 or $3. But he's always just looking to save money. He's always looking for opportunities to make money in the journey. It's like, hey, if I'm going that direction, yeah, I'll take a bag and get paid 10 or $20 just to take it with me along my journey.
I think I lost you.
But you have to have the right personality, and that Prosperity Nation is very important. That, hey, go try it. You know, if you haven't tried it yet, go try some of these things. And just as Misha's saying, it may or may not be for you. Kevin, he loves it. It works very well. He's super excited. Misha's saying, hey, maybe it's not for us. It's not fitting into our lifestyle. It's not fitting into our goals, what we're trying to do. And then you have to look at other options like you're talking about. How do we increase our income at work? Can we get a different job? Can we improve our position at work, whatever it may be? And then how do we keep cutting our spending?
Agreed. And that's one of the reasons that I love the debt-free community, because there is a ton of information out there. There's a ton of people out there doing it in different ways. And everyone says, you know, personal finance is personal, and everything is not for everybody. So just go try it, see what works for you. You know, I have an Etsy shop with digital downloads. So I just make very passive income with people downloading prints that I make. And I don't have to ship anything. I just make a couple bucks here and there, which can be helpful.
I saw that in the notes that I was looking at, that you have this Etsy shop. Is it artwork that you're actually doing?
Yeah, so I taught myself like how to use Photoshop and InDesign, and I started creating prints that people can, you know, put in art in their home or their office. And I put it up, and I take custom requests, and people just download it on their own and they print it, and they love it because they get it immediately.
Is that one of them behind you? I see a piece of art behind you over your shoulder.
Yes, that is one I made behind me, and I loved it so much. I was like, I need this one in my office.
That's cool. That's super cool. And it's amazing, as we take our talents, how many opportunities there are out there now to make money. My generation, when I was a kid, there was not near the opportunities. especially being raised in a small community of 2,000 people, obviously you can only sell so much. So there was
Yes,
just not a
exactly.
lot of opportunities to do that. Now, depending on your talent, your skills, there's so many platforms that you can share those out to the market and make some extra money. And in the meantime, feel fulfilled because you're putting super cool things in the hands of other people.
I agree. You have some talent and you can probably monetize it. Like maybe you're good at teaching or reading and you can tutor children, or if you like doing little crafty projects, you can sell almost anything on Facebook Marketplace. So start selling it. Just find what you enjoy doing so that the side hustle isn't so painful.
Absolutely. Misha, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking your time and for sharing your story with our listener. I know it's many times very difficult to get into the weeds of what's going on, to admit that we've made mistakes, although we've all done it. And I appreciate your openness, your willingness to share this story, because I do think it really does help inspire others who are listening to realize that even though mistakes are made, we can still move forward. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. And yes, Prosperity Nation, please don't give up. You can do this. If I can do it with all the mistakes I've made, you 100% can do it too.
Absolutely agree with you. Prosperity Nation, we've been here with Misha Griffith. You can find her on Instagram, Refilling My Wallet. The absolute best term I've ever seen, Refilling My Wallet. You can find her there if you want to follow her. She has some amazing posts to just help keep you motivated, to help keep you moving, and to help make sure that you're staying on your debt-free journey. Today's show has been brought to you by Prosperity Academy Plus. If you've not yet had a chance to go there, please go to the website, prosperityacademyplus.com. Here you will be able to get access to all the tools, training, knowledge, insight you need to start yourself down your debt-free journey and to keep you on track. For those of you who have not yet subscribed, please make sure you subscribe to our show so every Friday you get the chance to meet awesome new people like Misha, as well as learn new things that can help you stay focused on your financial journey. My name's Dave Hall. This has been The Prosperity Gap, where we help you bridge that gap between the life you're currently living and the one you should be.
So where were we?